Revenge is a dish best served scorching hot, with a side of drones. That was precisely the philosophy Ukraine followed in late January when it unleashed a barrage of drone strikes across more than 13 Russian regions, including Moscow and Crimea, leaving cities engulfed in flames. Russian President Vladimir Putin got a taste of his own medicine. Throughout the entirety of the Ukraine war, he has relied on these same tactics to wreak havoc on his enemy. Now, the war has come home to Moscow, and chaos is knocking on Russia's door. So, what exactly did Ukraine achieve with this massive drone swarm attack? How did Russia respond? And why is this strike the perfect example of karma hitting Moscow where it hurts? On January 24th, Ukraine launched well over 100 drones into Russian airspace. Their mission? To inflict as much destruction as possible in and around Moscow. Ukraine's drone operators dispersed this massive swarm across 11 Russian regions, marking one of the most significant attacks on Russian soil since Putin initiated his so-called special military operation. Among the targeted regions were Ryazan, home to one of Russia's most critical oil refineries, Bryansk, Engels, and even Moscow itself. The reasoning behind Ukraine's attack is already clear. As Politico reports, this latest strike is part of an ongoing effort to showcase Ukraine's growing capability to hit targets deep inside Russia. Ukraine is using these strikes to chip away at Putin's ability to keep his war machine running. Ammunition depots are being wiped out, and oil refinery operations are being disrupted, directly limiting the supply of artillery shells and fuel that can be sent to the front lines. Ukraine's army chief, General Alexander Syrsky, put it plainly, for several months now, the norms of artillery ammunition consumption in the Russian army have been reduced by almost half. If earlier this figure reached 40,000 per day, now it is much less. Cutting off Russian supply lines is an obvious motivation behind Ukraine's latest and most devastating drone attack on Moscow. But what exactly did it accomplish with its fleet of over 100 drones? As reports trickled in during the hours and days after the strike, it became clear that Ryazan was one of Ukraine's biggest successes. According to Reuters, the drone attack managed to hit several oil storage units at the Ryazan oil refinery, setting them ablaze. This likely destroyed hundreds of thousands of barrels of petroleum and diesel, fuel that Russia could have either sold or sent to its troops on the front lines. Beyond that, the refinery itself took serious damage. A railway loading rack was destroyed, limiting Russia's ability to transport oil across the Ryazan facility. Meanwhile, a hydrotreater was also left in ruins. That piece of equipment is crucial. It removes impurities from refined oil products, making them usable in Russian military vehicles, tanks, and aircraft. Without it, the Ryazan refinery becomes far less useful to Putin's war effort. The BBC provided further insight into the attack. The Ryazan refinery spans a massive 2.3 square miles, making it one of the largest in Russia. Verified footage from the strike shows people fleeing the site as a towering fireball rises into the sky. It's believed that Ukraine hit the facility in at least 2 separate locations. One fire broke out near the northern entrance, with the BBC confirming the location by analyzing road layouts and signs. Another fire ignited roughly 1.6 miles away on the eastern side of the facility, likely where the oil storage units were struck. But Ryazan's troubles didn't end there. The oil refinery wasn't Ukraine's only target in the area. The nearby Novoryazan thermal power plant was also hit. These plants burn natural fuels, such as oil and gas, to generate heat, which then turns water into steam. That steam drives turbines, generating electricity. It's highly likely that this thermal plant played a key role in keeping the Ryazan oil refinery operational, meaning its shutdown could cripple refinery operations entirely. Even if Ryazan had been Ukraine's sole success, this attack would have been a major achievement. But Kyiv was just getting started. Moscow itself was a prime target. The city's mayor, Sergei Sobyanin, reported that Ukraine launched a drone attack on the capital during the night of January 23rd and into January 24th. However, Sobyanin insisted that Russia's defenses functioned flawlessly, claiming, "The Defense Ministry's air defense forces repelled a drone attack in the Kolomna and Raminsky urban districts, both located in the Moscow Oblast, and the drones were flying towards Moscow. Perhaps some of those drones were intercepted, but their presence still managed to sow chaos in Russia's capital." The Federal Air Transport Agency was forced to temporarily suspend operations at several major airports, including Zhukovsky, Vnukovo, and Domodedovo. Authorities didn't provide an explicit reason for the closures, with a spokesperson merely stating, "To ensure the safety of flights of civil aircraft, temporary restrictions have been imposed on the operation of airports Sheremetyevo, Domodedovo, Nakovo, Zakhovsky, and Kaluga." You might have noticed that the agency mentioned 5 airports, while other reports cited only 3. Reading between the lines of Russian propaganda, this contradiction reveals 2 things. First, Ukraine's drone assault likely covered a larger portion of the Moscow Oblast than Russia wanted to admit. Second, the extent of the damage was probably worse than Moscow claimed, forcing the shutdown of multiple airports. And Ukraine's drone barrage didn't stop there. Another high-profile target was the Bryansk region. You may recall that Ukraine attempted to push into this border region in March 2023, almost as a precursor to its more coordinated counter-invasion of Kursk in August 2024. Clearly, Bryansk remains a key focus for Kiev. During Ukraine's overnight drone strike, the Kremny L microchip plant in Bryansk was hit, with Russia's TASS news agency confirming 6 drones struck Kremny L on the night of January 24th, damaging part of the production facilities and the finished products warehouse. While no casualties were reported, Ukraine's motivation for targeting this plant is obvious. A staggering 94% of its production is for the Russian Defense Ministry, manufacturing key components for some of Russia's most advanced missile systems. These include the cutting-edge S-500 air defense system, the Panzer air defense units, and Russia's Kalibr cruise missiles. According to RBC Ukraine, the plant also produced chips for Iskander missiles, capable of carrying nuclear warheads, as well as components for drones, radar systems, and electronic warfare technology. Taking this facility offline disrupts Russia's missile production and weakens its air defense capabilities, leaving Moscow more vulnerable to future strikes. These were the headline results of Ukraine's massive January 24th drone assault. However, multiple other Russian regions were also forced to fend off drone attacks, and they weren't always successful. Back in Ryazan, beyond the refinery and thermal power plant, drones triggered around 10 explosions in the regional center, keeping Russian air defenses scrambling to intercept them. There's also a strong possibility that Ukraine targeted the Dyagilevo military air base on the outskirts of Ryazan. While the success of that particular strike remains unclear, it's likely Ukraine aimed for the T-95 and T-22 aircraft stationed there, along with the 360th aircraft repair plant. Damaging those assets would hinder Russia's ability to continue its glide bomb campaigns against Ukrainian cities. Drone wreckage in Ryazan even struck a private residence, according to the region's governor. Meanwhile, over in Saratov, Ukraine's drones continued their assault. Russian media reported that Ukraine attempted to strike an oil refinery in the region, with up to 7 explosions heard in and around the city. The strikes didn't stop there. Reports also suggested potential drone threats in Tatarstan, roughly 700 miles from Ukraine. While it's unclear if this specific attack was successful, Ukraine had already hit a major oil refinery in the region back on January 11th. So, how did Russia respond to Ukraine's drone strike? Well, according to Putin's propaganda machine, every single drone was successfully eliminated. At least, that's what the Kremlin would like people to believe.